Okay,
Right.
and we're a great team as far as Grassroots Network teams go. We have two sub-teams, water affordability, and Doris and Susan and Gloria are on that team. We have a Western Water team, and Elaine Packard is in charge of that. And we also have a working group that's working on the Colorado River. So we have monthly meetings, and there's plenty of opportunity to get involved and work with us. So I'm sure everyone on this call was pretty bummed out about the election. And I've listened to many and many a presentation about how people really do care about clean water and safe drinking water. You know, water to fish in, water to recreate in. So the election results don't necessarily reflect that idea. So we've done this before, we can do it again to work and stop anything bad that could happen. So originally this was just going to be something that IB Environmental was going to do. And when Clean Water for All said they were going to put out a Zoom call on the election, I said, well, I'll include it in what we're doing. So I can abbreviate what they said. I've got some articles from Greenwire, and it shouldn't take more than another 10, 15 minutes. So Elaine and I are retired teachers, and we can attend meetings that are attended by staff of other organizations. And we belong to Clean Water for All. The Sierra Club is a member of Clean Water for All. So there's River Network overlaps with Clean Water. And so on this presentation, there were organizations that deal with frontline organizations like the Water and Equity Climate Resilience Caucus, to an organization that has utilities, the U.S. Water Alliance. So there was a lot of overlap in the presentation. So even though the call was like an hour and a half, I'm doing it in 10 minutes. So there was a lot of time spent on the results in Congress. So I think the Senate flipped. We now have 52 Republicans, 47 Democrats, and I think there's one that's too close to officially call. The House has 218 Republicans, 209 Democrats. There are 8 too close to call. So you could call this a Republican trifecta. But the margins are small. So if you keep track of stuff like I like to, MSNBC for 2 or 3 hours a day, that's going to make stuff difficult. So John Thune, the senator from South Dakota, was elected the Senate Majority Leader. Mike Johnson is still the House. I forget the title, but he's in charge of the House. There's a lot of things they need to resolve. And the lame duck is, we'll see how much they get done. And I'm hoping everyone understands why the importance of the right kind of judges is important. That's a lot of times what these people have started out with. It's really important. The Democrats are going to get, because they control the Senate, they're going to get. They don't have to have a filibuster. They can't filibuster appointment of judges anymore. So Democrats want to get in their judges, and If you follow court cases, you know how important that is. So there's a lot of, they haven't even done the appropriations for 2025 yet. The Water Resources and Development Act, which is an act that funds a lot of Army Corps of Engineers. There's something in the House, there's something in the Senate. They haven't, combined the two. The Farm Bill, I know I went to DC twice because everybody in Iowa was on those committees. There's something called the National Defense Authorization Act, and if I remember correctly, the reason they really want to watch that is because of all the bad things that can happen. Because it's a must-pass piece of legislation, so put on a poison pill or something that people don't like. Hurricane disaster relief and the supplemental funding. And the Public Lands branch of the Sierra Club is watching what's going on too. Some fact that I picked up on was that the next time senators are up for re-election, there's going to be more Republicans up for re-election. So the Democrats see that as an opportunity. So a little bit specifics. Committees in Congress that cover our issues. The Senate has only one, Environment and Public Works. And that's EPW, they call it. And the ranking member has been Shelley Capito from Wyoming, so she's assuming to be in charge of that committee. In the House, the Clean Water Act is in the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and it's chaired by Sam Graves, but David Berahzer is in charge of the Water Resources and Environment. And the Energy and Commerce Committee covers the Drinking Water Act. So sometimes there are bills in there that I care about, and people who want us to have safe drinking water act we care about too. So Lee Zeldin, one of the first appointees, and looks like to be one of the least controversial of his President Trump's appointees. He's has a lifetime score of 14 from the League of Conservation Voters. He's from New York. He has a history of opposing environmental action as a member of Congress. He voted against the Inflation Reduction Act, which gave us a large investment in clean energy and climate action. He voted against the bipartisan infrastructure law, which has a lot of things other than water in it, but it gave us the largest appropriations for sewage treatment and drinking water and cleaning up contaminants, emerging contaminants and PFAS, and then providing money for states to remove lead service lines. So he went along with all the other Republicans that voted against that stuff. So I have a quote from him. I'm not solid yet on the whole argument that we have as serious a problem when it comes to climate change as other people. I've got it. They said that in 2014, maybe he's changed by now. Promises to cut protections. It's been quoted in, paper that he wants to cut protections. Okay, so another appointment is the Office of Water. There's that's another political appointment. And right now, the person that's in it has a long history of working on water. So let's talk about one issue that is bound to come up. Greenwire has covered this issue. That's the waters of the United States. So the Clean Water Act says that it is to cover navigable waters. So people have gone to the Supreme Court. The second decision was the last one to talk about what a navigable water is. So Greenwire has quotes from our friends at the American Farm Bureau and the National Association of Home Builders. The Farm Bureau, we do intend to work with the Trump administration to provide more clarity and provide more certainty, particularly in the post-Sackett world that we are living in. And then what's the quote from the farm builders? They think that the Biden administration has undefined terms creating confusion that delays for home building companies. So it causes the Army Corps of Engineers to look at things on a case-by-case basis. And of course, they don't like that. And if you go to Project 2025, if you go to the history of the parts of the Clean Water Act that industry doesn't come in, like, Section 401 is a water quality certification process that allows the states to offer more protection on specific projects like a pipeline. The industry thinks that kind of idea is just a delay, an unnecessary delay. So during the Biden administration, there was lots of new regulations that we like. The PFAS regulation, and the lead service line removal, the lead and copper rule. So those are, targets. There are other things that could happen that other, the Trump administration did it first time and just slash the budget, take some portion of the program or a portion of the administration and move it to another city. Just restructure the office to change employees' jobs. So our job is to defend against rollbacks, engage in proactive messaging and organizing, let the public know our story about why we like clean water and safe drinking water. Okay, 21 minutes. I've got 21 minutes in. That was pretty good. So Stacey Berahzer has been with us from when the Water Sentinels decided to do a water affordability campaign. She was recommended as a speaker for our conference in 2019 in Baltimore. Let's see, Elaine Packard was there, and Susan Patton was there. So we come back to her now and again. She was at that conference in 2019. Our state lobby program has asked her to make a presentation. She has a degree in environmental science from North Carolina Central University and a Master of Public Administration from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. She is past chair of the board of directors for the Institute for Georgia Environmental Leadership and teaches in the Georgia Association of Water Professionals Leadership Academy. And her areas of expertise: pricing and affordability of water services, stormwater and watershed management, background in Caribbean water issues. And we've talked about the fact that she speaks Puerto Rican Spanish. So often I know people have questions, and we have people like Doris, who in the past have read the questions in the chat. So, if you have a question, type it in the chat. you notice, Elaine put in another, this is during the day. We specifically do these on the weekend in case we have people who have a job. And Elaine, I think I'm going to put that out to the memo to chapter and water group leaders about that too.
Yeah, I just sent it to the discussion listservs too.
So this issue of how to protect waters that the SACIT has left behind is a campaign, and Elaine is in charge of that campaign. Okay, so as a consultant, Stacey is passionate about helping people. If she works with the Sierra Club, she must be, who work to make water clean, safe, and affordable by connecting them with the funding and support they need. So Stacey's going to take it away, introduce. She has some staff on the call. I don't know how many she's going to introduce.
Yeah. Hopefully you're hearing me okay, Debbie?
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction. Yes, we do have a couple of folks in addition to me from IB Environmental. I'll go ahead and introduce them right now. So Liz Jurado is next to me, and we don't normally do that. We're not normally in the same room. Long story, but we're in the same room actually today in sunny Long Beach, California, because we are here for a conference. So but Liz joined our team earlier this year. She's an environmental policy analyst interested in the nexus between environmental impacts and management. She holds a BS in ecology from the University of Georgia, and she's currently really close to finishing up her master's in environmental resources from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She was able there successfully to complete a certificate in energy analysis and policy. So I'll stop there to say that IB Environmental does a lot of work on water financing and policy. And we'll talk a little bit more about our group in a minute as an organization, but we also do a lot of energy work. And so Liz was specifically brought on to kind of complement some of my water background, right? And as we introduce ourselves too, there is a note for you in the chat that we're gonna share a little bit about ourselves, but in the meantime, in the chat, if you can enter what state you're from, and the name of the drinking water utility that serves you. That'd be great, okay? So continuing with Liz, she's a strong proponent of leveraging interdisciplinary problem solving to address complex environmental challenges, like some of the ones we're talking about today. She brings a lot of analytical and policy assistance and tools to the firm, and we really enjoy working with Liz. We also have Ashok, and he can turn his video on here, but Ashok is a policy analyst and developer. So we're going to show you a model today that he has actually basically single-handedly developed, just with us giving him a lot of instructions and change this, add that, you know. So yeah, he is great with the modeling, but his passion is policy, environmental policy. And we've been trying to convince him his passion to be environmental policy finance specifically, because that's what our firm really focuses on. We come at the environmental issues from a finance perspective, right? How can we fund these projects? How can we generate the financing to get good environmental projects on the ground? So Ashok has a BS in computer science from Rice University and a master's in public policy from Georgia Institute of Technology. He used to do software engineering, and he aspires to continue to bridge the gap between technology and impactful policy solutions. So that's a little bit about us and our team. Again, please tell us where you're from in terms of what state and the drinking water utility that serves you, okay? And we have reasons for that. We want to know who we're talking to, but we also want to, yeah, we have a little activity where this is going to be relevant. So please keep those comments coming in the chat. But I want to thank the Sierra Club and the Water Sentinels specifically for involving us. This has been a great match. We'll show you a few of our different clients in a minute, but this has been one of our favorite ones. The engagements this year, all we're doing really is this webinar right now. Some years we've done more. We've actually worked with the utility in one of your member states, etc. But it's really one of our most fulfilling and engaging partnerships. So we want to thank Debbie and Doris and Elaine, all of these folks who have been working on these issues with us for a long time. I think our areas of passion really converge here, and so you all are a wonderful partners. So thanks for having us again today. But yeah, in terms of what the firm does, we focus on water and energy affordability and equity, like I said, right? We're looking at low income customers. We're looking at different, parts of a town or a service area that may be marginalized or have specific issues that need to be addressed, and we're lifting those up. And when I say lifting up, we're trying to highlight which areas really have genuine affordability concerns, for instance, but then we're trying to do something about it. And then another big area of our work is water funding sources. So we try to stay close friends with the groups that have water money. We're learning the energy side, to be honest, more on the funding sources, but in terms of water funding, we keep really close tabs on the state revolving fund programs, community development block grants, USDA rural development loans and grants. We try to keep up with what those groups are doing because they have the money for your great projects that y'all wanna, get funded in your states. It's hard sometimes to keep up with all that, but we do try. Stormwater and watershed management is a smaller area that we work on. Water and wastewater just kind of had the limelight for a long time. So we do some work on explaining how to fund stormwater and non-point source projects. It's a little bit different in terms of the funding stream or mechanism. So we try to highlight that as well. And then we do a little bit of work in the Caribbean, always willing to do more work in the Caribbean. That happens to be where I'm from, not Puerto Rico though. So I'm from Trinidad and Tobago originally. And so it's been pretty fulfilling to get to do a little bit of work there as well. So USVI, for instance, those, we're very open if you have needs and contacts in some of those areas. Most of our work has been in the continental US though. Like I mentioned, funding sources is really important. Debbie's intro at the beginning really highlighted how some of this may or may not change with the election results, but the way we keep close to the funding sources is, for instance, in Georgia, we facilitate a group of funders. We put on workshops for them. There are webinars that we do on important topics. We bring them together, most importantly, once a quarter and hear about their programs. We advise them on different things. So that's a really good way for us to keep up with things, but also have somewhat of an indirect, if you will, influence on how they run their programs. We highlight different EPA policies that may be coming down the pike, etc. And then we love working with nonprofits, like I said, and local governments. We kind of matchmake where the funding goes. We know the community sometimes, or the nonprofits that need the funding, and then we match them to the state or federal programs that have the funding. So I always say my husband doesn't let me play matchmaking in our personal lives, so I do it in my professional life, matching communities who need funding with programs that have the funding. And then this is what we're really going to focus on today. This is the biggest area of our work is water and energy affordability and equity. So we work with local utilities and their partners. We develop customer assistance programs, which is going to be a big topic today. And we design caps that ensure water services are well funded. So we're very aware that water infrastructure is very expensive, and in order to be good stewards of water as a resource and energy as a resource, we need to invest in the infrastructure. And we've had a bad history in a lot of cities in this country, a lot of communities where we have not invested in the water infrastructure enough, and that costs money. So what we're trying to solve is, how do you go ahead and find the money to invest in the infrastructure while not putting too much pressure on low-income customers, right? That's kind of where our work really lies. And so we work on policies related to affordability at both the state and national level, but mainly on the ground, mainly with local communities. Just wanted to highlight a couple of our energy projects. So we did a small energy project in Trinidad, but then we've worked with DeKalb County. That project is just wrapping up now on their clean energy transition plan. And we really led a clean energy transition plan is everything in the kitchen sink. It's greenhouse gas emissions inventory and, all of that. It's EVs, et cetera, but we led the piece on equity and affordability. That's really where we can have the most, I think, influence, and where we have the most to add as a firm is that equity and affordability piece. So that's this is a lot about us, who you're hearing from today. Maybe this will influence some of the questions you'll ask, but we wanted to highlight some of our examples of some of our clients. So here you see the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority. They actually run the state revolving fund program for Georgia, for the state of Georgia. And we've worked with several different, national organizations. And like I said, Sierra Club, we've been working with for a long time. Sometimes the amount of work, ebbs and flows a little bit over the years, but we really do enjoy this engagement. So yeah, with that, I'm going to pause for a moment before we dive into affordable water. And I can't help these water puns, they just come out. So yeah, we're going to dive into water, at least affordable water. Any, just raise your hand. Let's make this very interactive. We don't have a very large group today, which there's a benefit then of, making it pretty interactive. I'm not seeing, are we seeing any issues with any technical issues, Liz? Are we seeing? Okay, so it seems like people are hearing me and we're rolling here. So Debbie, I'm going to press on, right?
Right.
Okay. Okay, so I want to ask this group, and again, I told y'all, you can't really sit here and like watch the news or read a book in the meantime, because we're going to be calling on y'all. But if you get asked the question, is your water service affordable? So y'all are thinking about your water utility provider, right? Your drinking water utility provider. If I ask you, is your water service affordable? There are really two things that determines that. So when I ask somebody to come off mute or drop in the chat, or just shout out, what are the two things you think help to answer or determine the answer to this question? Is your water service affordable? No takers?
Well, how long can I talk?
Well, you can only do two things. So let's do,
Oh,
Debbie,
it's
do you
only
have one
two
of the two
things?
things?
Well, if it's affordable for the community, how much of a person's income do they have to use to pay for their water bill?
Bingo, you got it right. Now, if we were in the same room
Yay!
together, Debbie, if we were in the same room, I would have a prize for you. It would be a water bottle or an umbrella or something. We enjoy collecting. By the way, your water utilities usually have paraphernalia that they sometimes give out, for some of their customer engagement or education things. So we like to collect those. It's a little quick and we give them out. So Debbie, the next time I see you, I owe you something. But that is one. Income, right? So for income, that obviously a person's income, a household's income, obviously partly determines if the water service is affordable. So then what is the other piece? And Debbie, you can't answer this. Somebody else can tell us.
I don't know what it is.
Oh yeah, you do. When you hear the answer.
Okay.
Okay, so
safe to drink, and whether you have to buy more filters to clean out the toxins.
Darlene, that is a good one. That definitely would have been number 3 on this list. I'm not even thinking of the folks who have contaminated water. You're exactly right. Then it's not affordable at all. If even if they have a fairly high income, then it's very expensive if they have to do that, for sure. Yeah. So what I was thinking about is just the cost of the bill, right? So how much does the water cost? So there are some mapping tools that show these two things. They do a good job. So y'all have heard of EJ Screen, for instance. It's a free tool, right? And if we think the main determinants, so hopefully, that idea, Darlene, of contaminated water, that is the area we really need to focus on as a country, right? Those people really have a pressing problem, but hopefully they are the minority. Hopefully most of the country, we have decent quality water, and therefore, if it's affordable, is determined by how much income the people in the service area are making, and then how big their bills are, how large their bills are, right? So
I just have to interject that most of the water is not clean, and what's found in it are plastics and strings and toxins. It's worldwide, not just nationwide.
Yeah. So some of what the water sector would call emerging contaminants have been here for a while, and a lot of them have pretty negative health implications. You're right. But even some of the standards that EPA says, these are the standards, some communities in the US even are not meeting those. So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done on the science and the quality side of it, for sure. So for income and for cost, those two factors, we see tools like EJ Screen use the census data. to determine the income spectrum. So that's our number one on the list here that Debbie got, right? But the other piece about the cost of the water service is a little bit less specific and less accurate in some of the free or existing tools or models that we've seen, right? The cost of the water is something we actually can be very specific about, especially when you're looking at a utility that's considering a rate increase. So if a utility is considering to raise their rates by 20%, they can look at how those rates currently before the increase are affecting their customers and then compare that to what's going to happen in terms of affordability after their rate increase, right? We can pick a volume like 5,000 gallons of water and we can find that information. But a lot of the tools that we know about out there don't really let you capture that specific cost. And so that's something, or the bills, right? And that's something that for a utility that's considering a rate increase, that's very important. And so we've been working on developing something at IB Environmental. And so we have this model that's lovingly called POPs, Pockets of Poverty, but it's called POPs for short. And it allows the user to input real and accurate current water bills. So, you know, census isn't perfect when it comes to the income data, but I can't think of anything else. You know, there's no other resource really that we can use. So census is kind of the best that we have. Very small communities, when they have specific issues, like someone like what Darlene is talking about, or if they have really, you know, they've been not meeting EPA regulations for a while, so they have like really high fines that they have to pay and penalties. Sometimes they can be a door-to-door income survey. But generally speaking, in terms of income, we kind of are stuck with census. That's about the best that we have. But when it comes to rates information, each of these water utilities have specific rate structures, and we can fairly easily calculate the bill for, say, 5,000 gallons of water, right? So at this point, we're going to transition soon over into, Debbie, I'm seeing a couple people in the waiting room. I don't know if you want to let those in, and I'm just checking in here. I'm kind of rolling, and I feel like I need to check in with the temperature of the group and check the chat. But we are going to show you all how income from census and actual utility rate information can be brought in to the scenario at the very local level, right? So I'm going to ask folks. We're going to demonstrate a specific community. Has anybody heard of, just raise your hand, you can use the little Zoom feature, and raise your hand if you've heard of McIntosh County. Let's see if we have any hands going up. McIntosh County in Georgia. And I won't be surprised if, you know, we're not seeing a lot of hands go up. I'm not surprised about that. And if I ask you, have you heard of the county next door to McIntosh, which is called Glynn County? So these are rural. We wanted to pick a couple of rural communities. So these are rural counties on the coast of Georgia. And you may not raise your hand either of having heard of Glynn County, but you may have heard of Brunswick in Georgia. Brunswick is in Glynn County, and Glynn County is adjacent to, so it's next to McIntosh County. And we're going to, you know, demonstrate a mapping tool here where you can see where those are. And if you're thinking Brunswick County, Georgia sounds familiar, then it's not for good reason, I'm afraid. But Brunswick in Glynn is where Ahmaud Arbery, a young Black man, was jogging just on the public streets of the city of Brunswick in a neighborhood, and he was chased down and shot to death in February of 2020. So we had all of this on top of the pandemic to deal with. And so that's one of the reasons we chose McIntosh County, is to show you today, because it is rural. We will probably pick another community based on the folks that are in this room and sort of demonstrate live some of what the model can handle or what it can spit out. But we want to acknowledge too that we're gonna, you know, we're all over. Ashok is in Texas, and all of us are in different, and Liz and I are not in Atlanta where we usually are. But we want to acknowledge that the land from in McIntosh County is from the Walla people originally, and Later, it has been home to the Gullah Geechee people. For example, on Sapelo Island, which is part of, and we're going to bring up the map in a second, it's part of McIntosh County. They are a unique group. Maybe you've heard of the Gullah Geechee people. They were in the news a lot recently, if you follow, news in this part of the state or this part of the country, because there was a tragedy there that affected that actual Gullah Geechee group. So the Gullah Geechee is their direct descendants from slaves, but they were sort of cut off on this island off the coast of Barry Island, off the coast of Georgia, and there are a couple other enclaves like that. You're talking about a couple dozen families that live on this island of Sapelo. And they were celebrating some of their culture, the Gullah Geechee group was, and like I said, they're a community of Black slave descendants, and a gangway for the ferry that they were coming in on collapsed and 7 people died. All of them, I think, were older than 70, and one person was as old as 93. So they were actually celebrating the older members of their community and just really enriching their culture and celebrating it. And so that was pretty sad. But we will see. I thought this group would be interested in some of the background on the area that we're about to show you. So I'm going to check in with the chat really quickly here, but what are we going to do, Liz? Are we going to, okay, so David actually studied Sapelo Island, Georgia for his PhD. It seems like you studied some organisms, David, not so much the Gullah Geechee culture, but they kind of go hand in hand. There's a lot happening there where, there are zoning laws suggested that would change the whole lifestyle of this community. So this was a really bad blow to them. But yeah, so we'll switch now in terms of who's presenting, and we're going to show you a map of this area. So let's see, is it on here, the slide?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm just gonna,
it's not, no.
okay. Eventually it will, yeah. So this, by the way, like I said, we want to put in specific actual rates data so to get the bill, right? So for McIntosh County, Georgia, we were able to look up on this dashboard, just FYI. There are about 12 other dashboards across the country, but there might be ways for you to find this group is probably well aware. You can go online and find the rate structure for a water, wastewater, stormwater utility. So we calculated the bills here at 5,000 gallons. So this is like, if you happen to live in McIntosh County, Georgia, and you use 5,000 gallons a certain month, this will be your actual bill, right? So just giving the source of where we found that information. Usually we're working with the community and they tell us the bill, but this is the part of the coast that the utility is. And I will pass to Liz here and she will dive into, so this is directly from POPs, and she'll dive into what this is saying here.
Yeah, okay, so the figures that you're seeing here illustrate 2 distinct customer income scenarios in McIntosh County, specifically looking at different bills. So on the left, you see the current, most up-to-date typical monthly water bill for a McIntosh County resident, set at $30 from the dashboard that we just showed. And on the right, we have a 25% increase in that bill. So this is what would happen if the rate was raised to $40. So you can see here how the percentage of median household income spent on water bills, which is the percent MHI, is much lower when it is only a $30 bill. But when you jump up just 25% in that cost, you see that the percent of median household income spent on water bills is a lot greater. So this kind of highlights the difference here between the amount spent on these 2 different bills when you raise the price.
And just to point out, Sapelo Island, I believe, is right up here in this area. So it looks joined on, but if we were to zoom in, you have to take a short ferry ride. You take a short ferry ride to get over to Sapelo.
Yeah. Okay. So the next set of maps we're going to look at here, we have 2 figures that are still depicting water burden, and they're at the same price point this time. They're both set for a $30 monthly bill, but they're displaying different metrics. The left figure shows the percentage and median household income spent on water bills, percent MHI, so that should look familiar from the previous slide. And the right figure shows the percent of 20th percentile household income spent on water bills. And the point of these maps is really to illustrate the impact of affordability metrics on perceived affordability. So if you're looking at an entire population, all of McIntosh County, and you're thinking about, you know, the median household income as being the best metric to, you know, represent affordability, you might not be realizing that if you're looking at, you know, that 20th percentile group of people and their median income, you might be missing their impact. So on the left there, you see that the impact is distributed, but on the right, if you're looking specifically at that lower income group, you can see that there's a much higher impact. Okay, and here's a graphical representation of the two previous figures where percent of median household income spent on water bills by census tract is in blue, and the percent of 20th percentile household income spent on water bills by census tract is in orange. So with this bar chart, you can really see the need to consider specific populations, specifically income groups when it comes to affordability. Because if you're just looking at that MHI value, you might think, oh yeah, this is pretty affordable. It's a low percent of household income being spent. But when you shift your focus to water burden at the 20th percentile, you see that there's actually a pretty significant impact for those populations specifically.
And before we leave this, we're going to move on here a little bit, but I wanted to see if there were any questions. Just unmute yourself and dive in and let us know if you have questions on some of those charts.
Well, can you hear me?
Yes, Doris. Hi.
This is Doris in Portland, where my city refuses to consider having tiered rates that would charge less to people who use less water. The people with big homes, swimming pools, big lawns charge the same rate. And they say they will not do this because they have ways to help you if you're poor. But it's one by one customer assistance, and it is no help. It is so bureaucratic that people don't do that. They just suffer the high rates. But I think we need to know examples of cities that are better at this. So we give these examples to cities that are not interested in tiered rates.
Yeah, that's a good point, Doris. So one of the criticisms there is that, for one, when you pay the base charge, some utilities give you a couple thousand gallons of water for free with that base charge, right? And they do that, it's called a lifeline rate, and they do that for affordability. And that may help the situation that you're talking about there, if the utility will do that. I don't have their rate structure in front of me. And Portland does, they're pretty proud of their customer assistance program, but these things are never easy, right? You have to verify income, you have to prove that you make a certain amount of money or less than a certain amount. And so that could get red tape, bureaucratic, and sometimes it's just easier for people to, you know, pay a rate that they could hardly afford than deal with the bureaucracy and the red tape. So yeah, we can talk offline about that, about some of the ways that they can handle that. I will tell you, one of the arguments that they will put to you is that they don't want to keep the rates artificially low for everyone when there are only certain people who you know, have a hard time paying the rates. But if it's a large, and that's what this is, these maps are trying to show, if it is a significant percentage of the service population that's having a hard time with these bills, then maybe something needs to be done with the rate structure level instead of individually, like you said, one by one. So maybe if Portland's willing, we can show them some of this data and see if that helps to convince them. But I know that's been something that you've been struggling with, Doris, for a long time there. They haven't really been responding the way you were hoping. So yeah, okay, well, thanks for that comment. So it is all well and good to know which parts of your community or your service population, if you're using the utility language, right, their service population, if they know which parts have really deep pockets of poverty, like the deeper red in the maps that Liz was showing you, that's interesting, right? But what we want is to do something about it. We want to see that information, have the knowledge, but then we want to take action, right? So POPs helps measure and identify the pockets within the larger community area. But what are we going to do once we identify those? So in terms of doing something, we want to develop some sort of customer assistance program if it doesn't exist yet, or extend it, right? And it's key to have these kinds of programs, but and Debbie and the rest of the Water Sentinels team here asked me to talk about LIWAP. And so that's where we're kind of leading into this section of the presentation. Where do you find the money for these customer assistance programs to help customers who genuinely cannot afford the rates? And so this looks at what's legal in your state. And this is from a report from 2016 or so. Can we use rate revenue to pay for an assistance program in your state? And the answer is that depends, right? In your different states, there are different statutes, etc., that help to answer that question. So it's important for the utility to know what's legal in the state. So back around 2016, which is a really interesting year, right? There was a research team that worked on this, and we categorized each state. So let me go back to this for a second. Nothing much there. That's the research team. UNC's Environmental Finance Center in Chapel Hill. I was there at that time, and they were the lead on this. And what we found is that, you know, the utilities had to, it was confusing and ambiguous legal frameworks in each state. Utilities had to navigate a complex and confusing, ambiguous legal framework to answer this question: can I use rate revenue to help my low-income customers? So here's the specific language we found, right? And that's actually in the report. However, without rate revenue, without being able to use rate revenue, most of the customer assistance programs across the country are small, and they cannot address the real total customer need. So just to give you a quick background, there's going to be a map in a second, and you'll probably all hone into your states, right? And this is the legend for that map. When we looked at all the states, we said, is it explicitly authorized in that state to use rate revenue from your customers to help with fund the customer assistance program? Or on the other extreme, is it specifically in statutes, etc., prohibited to do that, right? And we'd hope we can do just red and green, you know, go or stop, but there was sometimes a little fuzzy area. So we came up with 4 categories. So sometimes it looks like it might be okay but there's no express authority. And sometimes it looks like try it, but you know, there are some potential things that might get you hung up, right? And so it also depends on whether the utility you're looking at is regulated by the commission of that state, the Public Utilities Commission, the Public Service Commission, sometimes it's called, or if it was not. So we kind of broke it down, you know, a little bit more simply there. So if it was a commission regulated utility that we're looking at, this is what we found to be the ability to implement customer assistance programs that were funded by ratepayer revenue. So we see a few in red there, and I will tell you that you should also check back with this website. A few states, and I think partly because of this report, did make changes to their statutes, and so their color changed on this map, right? And you have the URL there for how to check on your state. And for the utilities that are not commission regulated in different states, this is how it kind of shook out, okay? So I know everybody's going to their state to kind of look at what color there is. So what happens when state law is ambiguous? Let's think about the ones that are in yellow and sort of light green here, right? Which there are a lot in light green. You can see very, very few states at this point had it really clearly in their statutes that you could use this money. And why are we focusing on rate revenue so much? It's because it is really the way a utility funds its programs, right? And we would say the customer assistance program is, you know, a viable program that the utility should be looking to fund. If you're looking at smaller pots of money, it's really hard to fund a robust customer assistance program. So let's say your state is in red here or light green, and they're just not, your utility in different states are not willing to fund from rate revenue. What are some of your options, right? And so this is a very Sierra Club. You can look to introduce statutory language, etc. And then you have from the map the green states who have good language, and you can kind of introduce that, if you will, to your state leaders. You can develop an argument for why a cap conforms to existing existing utility business or statutes in the state, and then we can find alternative programs that doesn't reflect on direct customer rate revenue. But yeah, Elaine, you have your hand up.
Yeah, California went from green to red. Does that mean, like, I'm in Washington State, so it appears we have a state, I'm in Seattle, and I know that our region does affordability, but do we have a state law that I'm unaware of as opposed to California? What is the difference? Why did California go from green to red?
So when you say green to red, and remember the two maps that I showed you?
Yeah, the two maps. California was green, and then all of a sudden it went red when it said non-commission. I don't understand the commission and non-commission part.
Sure. Okay. So at that point, California, and I don't know if they've made changes yet, right? So on the one hand, Washington State is sort of best in class. They have some good statutory language that other states have now started to use to allow, rate revenue to be used for caps. California, why they changed the color on the maps, and it's a really great observation, right? Is because they treat their, so let's take a step back. Why are some utilities commission regulated? Usually they're private, large or private, large and private. They tend to be governed by or regulated by a commission body in the state. If they're smaller, if they're rural, usually every state is different, but that's usually the rule of thumb for which ones are regulated. And so at one point, and I think still to a certain extent, California had different rules for if you were a private utility that was being regulated by the state, and they had different rules for public, like locally owned utilities. And so that was a discrepancy there that a lot of people have problems with, right? On the one hand, they were telling one group of utilities, you have to fund customer assistance programs. And on the other hand, they were telling another group that was, and the difference was it commission regulated or not, that they couldn't do these, right? So yeah, that's a good observation. And we can talk more about California later on. I will try to drop in the chat here. You can find on the website that I put here, actually, we will try to drop that in the link after. If not, y'all will get the slides, right? This URL will take you where Elaine and everybody else, you can download like a 1 to 2 page document on your specific state that would help to explain what I was just trying to say, okay? So yeah, one of the reasons this project was done, this whole navigating legal pathways and that map that y'all saw, was so that it can kind of be proven that the federal government, the states were not helping, the states were not really helping address affordability. In fact, some of them were limiting the utilities in addressing it. So maybe we needed a federal program, y'all, to help low-income water customers. So did the project work? That's the next question. At first, it did not work because what happened in 2016, we were in a similar position to where we are now. We had an election. People thought the report was really pretty, good stuff. They liked the maps, but then they were like, we are taking this off as a discussion or a talking point with legislatures right now and, and politicians. This is not going to move forward. And then it did move forward. So what happened? So drum roll, the election happened, it was shelved, but then this did take off, a federal assistance program for low-income customers. And that was because of a pandemic. So the pandemic happened and all of a sudden people were like, we do need this, and a temporary program called LIWAP was put into place. So enter LIWAP to address the pandemic issues on the water side, right? In a nutshell, LIWAP was over $1 billion. The federal government up to this point had never directly helped households with their water bills. But in December 2020, there was funding for it. Then they added some more money. In the end, it was $1 billion plus, right? And the money was supposed to go to homeowners or operators of public water systems or treatment works to reduce the arrearages of and rates charged to such households for such services. So that was the legal language. The program,
Stacey,
yeah.
did you say the money goes to homeowners?
The money helps homeowners, Debbie,
Okay,
but
yeah,
it goes to, yeah, so that's the language
Utility.
here. It goes to the owners of the public water systems, right? Yeah. So for better or for worse, it was designed like an existing program called LIHEAP on the energy side, which had been around since, I think LIHEAP had been around for decades, since 1981, I think. So both of the programs were from HHS or Health and Human Services, not through EPA on the water side. Health and Human Services did not know the drinking water field at all in the industry, so there was a learning curve there. And then for decades, the community action agencies in each state was running LIHEAP, so they also ran LIWAP. So they had to learn about water. They had a learning curve too. And LIWAP, to be fair, was always advertised as a short-term program that was there to address the pandemic concerns, and then it would disappear. But many stakeholders, like that whole Pathways project with the map with the different colors, many stakeholders had been pushing for a long time for a federal water assistance program like LIHEAP, but on the water side. So for decades. And so Debbie and the team wanted me to give a little update on LIWAP now, and I'm not gonna, I've had more time to study the beginning of LIWAP, and it helped a lot of utilities in the short term. Things with LIWAP could have been better. There's a long report that we can send you that some of the water associations commissioned that we were really involved with. But on how it could have been improved and how it should be made permanent, right? We don't know where that is now. I am hoping that a lot of you are involved in grassroots efforts to keep LIWAP going. But let me tell you what is happening now with LIWAP. So there's a dashboard that you can go to, and we got an email on October 28th of this year. It said that you can now view state, tribal, and territory data. So they included all of those levels for annual report data from all fiscal years for LIWAP recipients. Some of the states or entities took a no-cost extension, and they had an extra year, if you will, to spend the money and run their programs, and some didn't. The dashboard that's where they manage all the information. They've tried to keep it pretty transparent, and that data on the dashboard currently provides information on assistance provided on households served between October 1st of 2022, when everything sort of kicked off, and March 31st of 2024. But I will read for you the last sentence of their email. This will be the last regular update of the LIWAP data dashboard. The Office of Community Services will release a final LIWAP report, impact and implementation report, in fiscal year 2025. And they said, thanks for working with LIWAP, right? But I know, and I have hope that a lot of you are working to reinvigorate that program and to make it more long-term. I mean, if the federal government is helping with energy assistance at the household level or for households, the question has always been, why isn't it helping with water for some of these households? So yeah, I'll move on there. Debbie, did you want to say something here?
I just noticed that Debbie Dingle put out a press release about the legislation that she's sponsoring.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. And a lot of y'all know more about those efforts than I do, right? And so that's great. We need people pushing for, and there's a grant maker organization that is actually very interested in this, and but I don't want to say any more than what HHS has put out, because I don't want to muddy the waters for any
Okay.
efforts that might be out there.
And then another thing, I knew that Congress asked EPA to have a report.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
there were so I've been on a couple of those calls, and I asked Larry at NRDC, well, does this mean that after this report's done, they're going to try to put one together? And he said there's no link. Yeah, there's,
Mm,
it was just a report, doesn't mean they have to do anything with,
Mhm.
with the information they got.
mm. Well, I'm gonna continue here, but this is where we want to do something interesting, and I'm gonna put Ashok on the spot just to make sure that you're good. You can turn your camera on, you can share your screen at some point soon, Ashok, but we're gonna pick a community represented by somebody on the call today, and see, you know, I don't know, see what affordability is looking like from the POPs model, on your end. So,
Yeah, sure. I'm ready.
okay, great.
Do you want me
Let's
to share my screen now?
Not yet. How about, so David in Cape Hope, which one do we want to, maybe scroll all the way up to the chat messages where we were seeing people talking about, okay, should we do Doris in Portland, Oregon? Ashok, can you start pulling us some of that up, on your
Yeah,
end?
sure.
Okay, and
Sure.
we've looked at Portland in the past on different things, but Doris, if you want to tell us what is a good, like, do you know how many gallons of water or cubic feet you use, like in your household, or what's a good number you think of volume of water per month for a residential customer?
I don't have my bill here
Okay.
right now, so I couldn't tell you that. I just know that I asked the committee that works on water rates if we could give a presentation on how you help people understand the the programs that you help.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, we are absolutely not interested. When environmental justice communities have talked to the people at the state level who implement the LIWAP funding,
Mm-hmm.
they are always defer to some industry group that defines low income and disadvantaged communities.
Hmm.
It is they are strongly in charge of how these federal funds get allocated to.
Oh. Hmm.
So the situation in Oregon is not really very good because it it just doesn't help the poor people. And we work with the green green Latinos. We
Mm-hmm.
have green Latinos here in Portland who are concerned, and we have not been able to accomplish very much. But we're we're now concerned that things are going to get worse under the administration. And we have a senator, we have people in Congress who are on these committees, but we're afraid that the committees in charge of this funding are going to really change things. So we hope they don't.
Yeah, probably for the worst. So, okay, I would say I'm gonna suggest in terms of a volume for a typical, Portland household, let's use 5,000. That's a nice sort of round number, and we that's what we use for the McIntosh County one. So let's keep the 5,000 for today. And so Ashok is pulling up right now for Portland, Oregon, and he's putting in 5,000 gallons. And there are very many ways that we, as you saw with the maps that Liz did, the point of those where it's kind of depending on how you define affordability, the situation looks different. When she used 20th percentile, it looked very unaffordable. But when she used the median income, it looked not so bad, right? So there's a lot of, I think, traction in the industry on the affordability side. Let's just say we like 20th percentile, right? Because low income people who are not making the middle income, they need to afford water services too. So that's what we're putting in there for him now.
I just have a question about that.
Yeah.
So for 5,000 gallons, what would I
The
need like
bill?
a bill, yeah, like a monthly
Yeah.
water bill. How much would that be approximately?
Yeah, we'll try to look that up. That's a good point, Ashok. I don't have a dashboard in front of me for
Why
Portland,
don't we
Oregon.
stick with the what was affordable in Macintosh? Let's try 30 and then 40 and see how
Yeah,
that looks.
maybe we do $30, just like in Macintosh, but for Portland, based on their income, and their 20th percentile, Ashok, and then we'll try 40 and see what those look like, okay?
Okay, so for the total bill, we'll do $30 total.
Yeah, so you'll do water burden only, because we're just putting in water, we're not putting in the wastewater and stuff yet, although, it's not, water's not that cheap in Portland, but we can see how that goes, and we can probably even show the back end of the tool, if we need to kind of change those numbers, okay? I'm looking at the questions here, so yeah, somebody was asking about tribes. Tribes was specifically highlighted in the LIWAP stuff, and reported on in the dashboard. And then I think there was a question earlier about, do we expect the Trump administration to change the LIWAP funding program? LIWAP is dead right now. It has sunsetted. It's over. It was always advertised as temporary. Just there's some groups who are saying, here's how you do it better, and here's how you make it long term. And then there's some other groups that are saying, do it. The advocacy sort of grassroots groups that you all are probably more familiar with. So, Ashok, I'm gonna continue here until you tell me that you're ready to share your screen, okay?
I'm ready.
All right, so the point here is, one, you can tell the utility, Portland in this case, that having an affordability program is part of doing business, which they have gotten that memo. Portland's pretty good at like they like to address affordability through these assistance programs, like Doris was explaining, and not through the rate revenue itself or the rate structure itself. So if you are in a different situation where, yeah, you can go ahead and stop sharing. If you're in a different situation where your utility doesn't believe that it's part of the budget or the operating budget for a utility, then that's some of the points on that last slide can help you. But let's see what Ashok is able to pull up. So you have to share your screen now, Ashok.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so this is
Yeah.
the back end. You can kind of zoom out a little bit maybe, so we focus on the map. So what he's put in here is 20th percentile. Remember, we're saying that in a lot of ways is more informative. So it looks really small right now, Ashok. I don't know if you can zoom in a little bit.
Yeah, let me try re-sharing it.
Okay.
You share.
And then
I think
hit the
Zoom.
advanced button.
Yeah,
and
portion
then
of
you'll be able to
screen,
do it.
right?
Yeah.
So
I
in the
just-
meantime, while he's doing that, what you're gonna see is different. So he's picked blue because it's water. Now, if you wanted to do red, like Liz was showing, that's just a click of a button. In the model, we can change the color. And you'll see different shades of blue. So, all right, there you go, Ashok.
Does that work?
Yeah, that's a lot better. So the things that you're seeing at the bottom of the screen is where we're picking 20th percentile for water burden instead of, say, MHI. We can do poverty rate, we can do different ways to measure affordability. And then, it's, yeah, Washington. So yeah, Ashok, you want to talk through, well, yeah, I guess you're showing these things. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just kind of, this is showing Washington County right now, and funny story about that, I used to actually live in Washington County, so I was near, like in between Beaverton and Portland, but yeah, Multnomah County is the other one that covers most of Portland, so you can pick that over here, and we can see Multnomah County over here. And this water burden, 20th percentile water burden that we're seeing here shows that for a lot of communities, especially closer to downtown Portland, the water burden is upwards of higher than 1.5%. For example, here it's 2.09% of their income. Here's 2.85% of their income. Oh my gosh, 3.56% here. And even areas outside of there. If you want to compare it to median household income water burden, that would be this one. where you can see the legend change to show that for most people, it doesn't go much higher than like 0.64% water burden. So
Because the
those,
median, they have a higher income than the 20th percentile income, yeah. And so income is a real big, obviously, driving factor in affordability.
Well, I would love to have this chart to show to people, including our friends at Green Latinos, because they, their problems
Mhm.
that these people have are all the problems that we mentioned, the bureaucracy of trying to prove that they deserve a lower rate.
Mhm.
And this isn't the biggest thing that I do, but we are, like many cities, facing increased rates because of treatment for PFAS.
Right.
This is happening everywhere
Mhm.
because treating water effectively for all the PFAS in your drinking water is expensive, and the utilities are fighting this. They say, it's not our problem. But
Yeah.
but how could this is a Census Bureau map. I mean, could Aisha send me this picture?
Yeah, we can talk about that. This is POPs. This is a model that's internal at IB Environmental, and we don't, we're just letting y'all see kind of the back end here for a couple minutes today. But yeah, we can work with them. So when we work with a utility, they may say, I don't like $30. That's nobody pays $30 in Portland. Make it $60, right? And that's more realistic. And so we can work with y'all if they are willing to put in, yeah, we were gonna do $40 anyway, right? Just to match it with McIntosh County. So you can put that in Ashok and see, and you'll see some of the colors have changed now. We can also show energy burden because water is not the only thing that's going up, probably, right? Doris, in your community and others.
Yeah,
so,
we
yeah.
want energy burden too.
Yeah, if they're willing to talk to us about this, we'd be happy to kind of make it more specific and send them some of the maps.
Well, I will give this a try. My
Okay.
own water costs are high because I have to buy water filters. My water is contaminated with lead, and we have filters in the bathroom and the kitchen that we have to pay expensive filter replacements for.
I can only imagine.
So I'd be happy to work with you, Stacey, on talking to these people about how to give some more help to the disadvantaged people in Portland. I'm not disadvantaged. I'm just fine. I can afford the filters and stuff.
Yeah, but you're thinking about your neighbors, which is really commendable. That's what we're here for, to speak for those who are having a harder time and marginalized. So yeah, that's great. And yes, if they'll be willing to talk to me, we can show them this, and then we could adapt it to what they think is, what the numbers that they like. Every water utility has an amount that they think a typical bill is, for instance. They can give me that amount and put it into there so they can compare it to some of their other models. But yeah, so I think that's probably it. We can grab back the screen share from Ashok. Thank you for demonstrating that, Ashok. But this is water burden. Like I said, we could change the colors. We can do energy burden as well. In fact, for DeKalb County, like we were telling you in the beginning, in Metro Atlanta, sorry, we've been doing a lot on the energy burden for their transition plan. So Liz is going to help me bring the slides back up here, but we're going to transition a little bit now. We'll be wrapping up here in a couple minutes, or in a few minutes. So, one of the things you can work with your community on, or utility, is including the customer assistance as a bona fide part of doing business as a water utility, but also because it costs money. When some people cannot afford their bills, right, then there's a lot of costs involved. But utility bonds, the buyers of utility bonds are also getting nervous when they see a lot of bills that are not being paid because people can't afford them. The credit rating agencies which the utilities care a lot about, just like you have a credit score, utilities and local governments have a credit score. And if the credit rating agencies who give them that score is concerned about the number or the percentage of folks not paying their bills, it can actually lower their credit score, which would cost them a lot more to borrow money and has a lot of repercussions, right? So you can try that route. But if you cannot use the money from your customers to help, you know, with helping the low income folks, there are a couple other revenue sources. So bill roundup programs, maybe when you write your check to your water utility, you can round it up to the nearest dollar or whatever, and that extra money goes to help your low income neighbors. That does not raise a lot of money, y'all. I'm sad to say. It's a nice gesture. I think it's an educational opportunity because people are here writing their checks saying, man, some people can't afford their water bill. Okay, I'll round up, right? Like it gives them that reminder about some of their neighbors and their communities, but it's not a lot of money usually. Royalties from a service line insurance program before lead service lines. You can pay like $3 a month or something as a homeowner and insure that line. I don't know what's happening with those programs now because of lead in service lines, but those third-party companies used to give some of the proceeds or the royalties to the water utility that was working with them. And so that has been used for customer assistance programs. And then, you know, the last bullet here is partnerships with other utilities. So we know one water utility that we work with where when you call to set up service as a water utility customer because you're new to the area, they'll tell you about where you can get natural gas from. And if you call over and get natural gas service from this particular natural gas provider because of that phone call, then the water utility gets royalties and they spend that on their customer assistance programs. And then last but not least, we are learning, that's really funny too, that cell tower lease revenue, like I'm saying, is last but not least, because we're doing some more work on that. And it can be a significant source of revenue if done right. So we're actually working with the utility right now where they are raising $230,000 per year just on leasing some of the space on their water towers to cell phone companies. And so we will know a lot. Liz is leading that project, and we will know a lot more about how that works and how the utilities can renegotiate those contracts to raise more money for their customer assistance programs. So stay tuned on that. Check back. We'll have a blog post or something as we learn more about that. But that is a real untapped potential in some states. We don't know much, you know, let me just say, I don't know much about how these leasing arrangements work in other parts of the country, but we're studying it in the Southeast and seems to have a lot of potential, right? So in wrapping up here, I know Debbie's probably getting nervous with the time, but we have it, Debbie. We're on point here. If you want to, for instance, see what we come up with eventually about revenue from cell tower leases at water utilities that can be used for customer assistance programs, we'll put something out at some point on our blog post. I don't know if it's easy for Liz to drop that link in the chat, but we'll try to do that. That's how you can keep up with some of the work that we are doing. So it's on all kinds of different topics that have to do with environmental finance, right? So it's called Ripple Effects, an environmental blog. And then this is an example of a post on the blog. So sometimes we're looking ahead and we're trying to warn people of what's coming. So this is a long time ago, 2023. I feel like it was before then. We had a blog post, we had a blog post on lead service lines and saying to the utilities, hey, lead service line is coming, inventories are coming, please get your money together, please figure out how you're going to do this. And by the way, this image was created by IB Environmental because it was created for warmer parts of the country. The one in the EPA guidelines was accurate, but it was more relevant to like New York, you know, where the water meter was in the basement, for instance. So it was more relevant to colder parts of the country. And we wanted, you know, we heard a lot of states in the Southeast saying we need something. And plus this one is in color. I'm not sure if the others are in color, but yeah, feel free to steal that and use it. It's available at that link at the bottom of the screen, but it's an example of, we try to get out ahead and kind of warn utilities about what might be coming in terms of legislation or regulations, I should say, so they can get prepared. So this was one example, but that graphic is useful, especially if you happen to be joining from a warmer state. And yeah, we take more questions now. We can look at the chat and see if we can, can chime in a little bit more. But yeah, this is how you could contact us, and we'll get in touch. We'll get back in touch with you if you have any questions or whatever. But yeah, what do we have here? Anybody with questions or comments, concerns? You seeing anything, Debbie, or?
I don't see any specific questions. But I think, people are really interested in knowing more about what to expect in the future. And so the links you gave us to your organization, especially to your blog, the blog looks like it has a whole bunch of good articles with dates. I'm going to send all these links you have, but I encourage people to look at your blogs.
Yeah, not everything that we do is covered in those blogs. Sometimes, like the client who's we're working with on the lease tower, the cell tower leasing stuff, they don't want us to put anything out yet. Eventually we'll make it generic and put it out there when we kind of get the project wrapped up. But yeah, so feel free to reach out to us too directly, and we'll let you know if we have any experience on the specific topic that you are experiencing with your community.
Yeah, we'll be putting something out there soon on stormwater. So if you're interested in that topic, definitely check into the blog.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that is on my list of things to do to get it out there and get it published. But yeah, any other comments or concerns? All right, guys. Well, we have been using the chat quite a bit, and I almost feel like putting Ashok on the spot here to explain something that he learned very recently. But remember, if you go to your chat, if you go to the chat and there are 3 buttons at the very top on our screen, it says water affordability online event, and then there are 3 dots to the right of that. If you click on that, you will see the first option on my computer is to save chat, right? And that way you can get all of the chat messages saved to your computer with all the links and stuff, so you don't have to write everything down. You'll get all the questions and comments too from the folks who participated today. But yeah, I always want to thank this group. You all are so engaged, have good questions, good comments, and that makes it fun to talk with you all. So thanks for having us, Debbie, and the rest of the Water Sentinels.
Thank you. We needed this. This gives us something to do.
You're welcome, Stacey. And thank you for having a great visual presentation.
Yeah, and thanks to Liz and Ashok for helping out today. They brought a nice perspective on this, and I'm glad you all were able to see the back end. I know we recorded this, Debbie, but we'll see how far and wide it goes. We don't normally show the back end. We just thought y'all were a special group, and we'll show you how the model works. But if you go to publish it on a newspaper, let me know first, okay?
Sometimes Gloria puts it on our YouTube channel.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank
Great.
you.
I'm gonna end the Zoom call.
Okay, great. Bye, everyone. Thanks.